Hey, this is Travis with Oscar Mike Radio, and to prove that Marines really can fight in any climate and place, I am in Braintree, Massachusetts, outside in a parking lot doing number 150. And it's kind of cool because this is what my podcast has been about. I can take my rig, my stuff, go on the road and get the story where the story is. And I have a very special guest for number 150. It's going to be cool. Before we do anything else, I want to say thank you to my sponsor, Joyce Asack of Remax Synergy.
Hi, this is Joyce Asack with Remax Synergy. I am a real estate agent that services the South Shore. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram by following Joyce Asack at Asack Real Estate or my website, asackrealestate.com. You can also reach me directly at 508-942-7146. For any buyers or sellers that I'll be working with in 2019, a donation will be made in their name to 22 Cal.
So my guest for number 150 is a man by the name of Conor Sullivan. I met Conor at Jonathan Gosselin's veteran-owned, veteran-operated event late last year in 2018, and he has a great story. Conor, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you.
I'm sitting at Jonathan's thing. We're doing the live cast, and this dude with this beard, kind of young, you're the youngest guy in the room, comes in, and you sit there and tell me that, hey, I had a heart transplant. I'm an Air Force veteran. I'm with a motorcycle club. I got kids, wife, and everything else. You've lived a lot of life in a short amount of time.
Yeah, definitely.
I kind of want you to start at the beginning. Can you kind of tell me about your Air Force career?
So I joined right after high school, just like a ton of people do, whether it's they want to serve their country or college doesn't work out for them, or they're going down a wrong path. So basically for me, I tried a little bit of college, didn't really work out, and then joined the Air Force. I took the ASVAB in high school. Didn't end up joining the Air Force, but it was always in the back of my head. And then after I tried a little college, then I decided, fuck it, I'm going to do that. Ran out of money for college, so enlisted, went to boot camp, all that. I was killing it in tech school, and when I got to my first base.
What did you go into tech school for?
I was a crew chief, so 2 Alpha 531 Bravo, which is basically a crew chief. They're different in the Marine Corps and the Air Force. The Marine Corps one's actually... I'm pretty sure the crew chiefs in the Marine Corps are also the load masters and aerial gunners. The Air Force, they have 3 separate jobs for all those. But
was that on a helicopter or aircraft?
I worked on C-130s.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
What's it like flying in a C-130? C-130 rolling down the street?
I actually never got to fly in one. I worked on them for 3 years, never got to fly in one.
Really?
Yeah, I was just getting to the point where if I started showing a little more initiative, because I was kicking ass, I was learning a lot. A few of the older guys started noticing that, and what they do is if you're one of those guys out there that's really kicking ass, they'll take you on trips, different places. A lot of the guys, their first trip is to Thule, Greenland, which isn't really a fun trip. It's negative 30 degrees, but I would have enjoyed it.
So you're in the Air Force, you're working on this aircraft that you never get to fly in.
Yeah.
That must have been fun.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was on in the Air Wing base in Yuma, and a lot of the Marine Corps guys, once they got out of their MOS school, within 6 months were respected to fly on their aircraft.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the year that I was in, I mean, there's obviously still conflicts going on. We all know about that, but there wasn't so many deployments going out from my base, like as much as there was years ago. You know what I mean? We were on 6-month rotations to Bagram, or they did 4-month deployments to Djibouti. When I was there, it just wasn't my time yet, so I did a couple years, and then before I ended up getting sick, I was on the list to go to Bagram in April, and I got sick in February. So
before we go into your health, what was your Air Force time like? Did you like it? Did you feel? Because I really don't know. I don't understand. As a Marine. I mean, I'm not trying to be glib here, but it's like I rarely talk to Air Force guys, and they're not really out there when they get out.
Yeah. So I'll start at the beginning. I mean, boot camp was summer camp with a couple workouts per day. I can't lie about that. I'm not going to tell you that it was. I mean, all the branches have dumbed down their boot camp nowadays because of sexual harassment and people being mean and shit like that. But especially the Air Force, it wasn't difficult at all. I mean, I went in there. Luckily, I don't want to say I was a smart kid, but I went in there knowing what to expect. So when I showed up and the second day we did a PT test, I knew what the fuck I had to do for the PT test. There was some other kids, they showed up the first week of boot camp, they ran 1.5 miles in 18 minutes.
What?
Which I don't understand if they didn't know where they were coming, where they were going, but you would think you can go on
walk a mile in 18 minutes.
Yeah, you could go online and search a quick video and realize, okay, shit, that's what I got to do. I got to run push-ups and sit-ups for a PT test. So then now I'm going to prepare for that. So when I get to the United States Air Force boot camp, I can excel at that. But for some reason, there were some kids that just I didn't know. Maybe their parents pushed them to go there, but yeah. So boot camp was easy. I excelled in there. I got an honor graduate coin. Top 10% based on your grades, your PT tests, your overall. Your MTI has to approve of it.
Did you go to boot camp in Texas?
Yeah, Shepherd, Lackland, sorry.
So how is it like coming from this area of the country down to Texas?
I mean, at boot camp, I didn't really get to explore Texas at all. So
right.
It was just, it was the only thing that was different down there was the weather, basically. So I was down there between January and March, so it was January and March. Yeah, it was a hell of a lot different than winter was up here. But yeah, I didn't really get to explore Texas at all until I got to tech school. So
what was tech school like?
So tech school, we went to Wichita Falls in Texas. That's Shepherd Air Force Base. It's a huge AETC base. Tech school, that's where it was broken up into 2 courses. We did a fundamentals course where you learn basic airplane stuff, and then we did a specific course where you're broken up into whether you're working on C-130s, B-52s, A-10s, fancy fucking drones, like whatever you're going to work on, you go to a class based on whatever plane you're going to work on, and then you further your knowledge on that single plane. Which is funny because the information you learn there, it's just basic stuff. Like the C-130 that I'm going to be working on has 4 engines. It has the wingspan is, I think, 137.2 feet or something like that. So it was all basic information that helps, but it's not going to teach you how to do your job once you get to your first base. When you get to your first base, that's where you'll start, training.
So there's a lot of on-the-job training.
Yeah, exactly.
That complex.
Yeah. It's all on the job training.
So you graduate tech school and go to your first duty station. I grew up in Shreveport where there was Barksdale Air Force Base, and I've talked to a lot of Air Force guys, and for them it was like a normal 9-to-5 job. It wasn't really like an identity. It was just like, hey, I'm in the Air Force, I'm going to job, I'm going to do my thing and come home. How was it like for you?
Yeah. It was somewhat like that. I was a single. Well, I wasn't single. My fiance was back home, but I was on paper. I was a single airman. I wasn't a married airman. I was in the dorms. I was in E3 in the dorms. So it really was like the Air Force was my life down there because my family wasn't down there. My family was just the friends around me. That the whole base basically was my life. I didn't live off base, but from a job standpoint, going to work on the planes was kind of like a 8-to-4, 9-to-5 type job,
So, like I said, when I met you at Jonathan Gosselin's, office, the first thing that your brothers and when I say your brothers, your motorcycle brothers, and Jonathan says, like, look, this guy had a heart transplant. I'm like, get out. He looks like he's in tip-top shape. So what happened to your health that led to that, man? That was pretty intense.
Yeah, so it was funny because leading up to it, there was no sort of signs, There's nothing in my family that leads to heart disease. My dad runs ultra marathons. I think last weekend was his 33rd marathon, and then he's done 50-kilometer races, 50-mile races.
What?
And then, he did a 100-kilometer race, which is 62 miles. So there was nothing even grandparents too, there was nothing in my family that led to any sort of hint of heart disease, heart problems, nothing, diabetes, nothing. When I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, that was my first duty location. I was there for a couple of years, basically just doing the 9-to-5 job, working on the aircraft. I was on swing shift, so it was 4 to midnight after doing mid shift for a while, which was midnight to 8 in the morning, which is completely fucks up your sleep schedule. But I was doing 4 to midnight for the longest time, and I was otherwise healthy. PT tests, I still get 96s on them, and Yeah, I think my mile and a half, I would run in sub 10 minutes every PT
nice.
test. So I wasn't really a runner, you know. Some people ask me now, were you a runner beforehand? I really wasn't, because I was forced to do it. The Air Force made me run, so
you had to run.
Yeah, exactly. So, on my off time, I didn't say like, oh, I'm gonna jog. I did at the gym sometimes, but I wasn't a jogger. I was just like every other kid that gets out of tech school. You get to your first base, you want to get fucking yoked up, you want to get big, you know. So I was in the gym like doing that mildly, you know. I never got shredded, but
So you're doing this, and then what's the first indication that something is not right?
yeah. So I started getting a little like flu-like symptoms around January time. So I figured January is in Arkansas. They're still cold. They have ice storms, couple snow days. But I thought it was, you know, just cold symptoms, a flu maybe. So my whole life I would just, you know, continue on basically.
Right.
I'll sweat it out or something. But prior to that, I was going to the gym every night. I was going to jiu-jitsu in the mornings. Off base, it was a jiu-jitsu school I went to, and so after those flu-like symptoms came by, I started getting, I think the first time I noticed anything really was probably at jiu-jitsu one time, where because there was a few guys there. This purple belt, he used to say that one of my best things was that, like, somebody would get me into side control, and then I would just, because most white belts they just spaz out. So I would get into side control. Somebody would get me into side control, and then I would just calm down and then figure out what to do and execute it from there. And then I did that one time, and then I was laying there, and I figured I felt like I was out of breath more than I normally would be after rolling for about 5 minutes, grappling for 5 minutes. So I was a little more out of breath than I normally was, and I was like, okay, that's weird. This doesn't feel normal. But like I said, I just pushed it off. I kept on my normal duty day. You know, I continued to just go to work the next day. Figured nothing of it, and then things from there just got progressively worse. So I started throwing up and having diarrhea. I think it was about like 2 weeks of throwing up and diarrhea. So obviously something's going on, you know. Right. So but still, I just thought it was a sickness, because there's nothing you don't. Because my heart was failing and my other organs were failing, and it wasn't like I was, my heart was doing weird heartbeats, you know, irregular heartbeats or nothing like that. It was just, I just felt sick, weak and sick. Then I lost about 15 pounds in 2 weeks, which at the time I was trying to lose weight. So I looked on the scale, I was like, oh, cool. But then it was like, that's not healthy though, because I didn't work that hard that week to lose that much weight. And then I was going up and down. I lived on the second floor of the dorms, and I would go barracks for you Marines. Yep. I lived on the second floor of the dorms.
Oh, you actually called it dorms, guys.
Yeah. So I'd go up the metal staircase, and so just go up probably about 12 stairs, turn around, go up another 12 stairs, and then I'd open the door, start walking down the hallway to my room, and at that point I was out of breath. And wow. I just got out of my car and walked up the fucking stairs, and I was out of breath. So I was like, all right, something's going on. So I actually went to the on-base doctor, which is a terrible idea. I went to the on-base doctor. It was Air Force lieutenant was the doctor. It was a first lieutenant was the doctor. I don't know his name. Even if I did, I wouldn't put him on. I put him online. But so I went there to saying, oh, I think I have flu-like symptoms, basically, because I never expected that something would be wrong with my heart, because I was in the gym, I was doing jiu-jitsu, I was getting over 95s on my PT test. There was nothing that led up to that my heart would be a problem. So I went there, I said, yeah, I want to get checked out for a flu or whatever. And then they did an EKG, the doctor said, you have a possible heart murmur. There's like your EKG has an irregular heartbeat. So they said, we got to get you a referral for a cardiologist to check it out. And then they did they did blood tests, and then they wanted to do a stool test to figure out if there was any GI thing going on, because I told them I'd been throwing up and diarrhea. And then I dealt with the referral department in the clinic, which was absolutely awful. They ended up never even getting me the referral. So you have to get a referral for the off base.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same on the.
No, in Yuma, when I was stationed in Yuma, you had the base doctor, which was, people don't believe me, it's very rudimentary. It's very basic.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're trying their best, but it's basic. And if they can't handle it, they have to give you referral to go to Yuma Regional. What they prefer to do is send you to Balboa, which is in San Diego. So you got to be really hurt to want to go there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, same thing.
Yeah, so it was similar there, where if you go to the Air Force doctor, it's basically to get a letter that gets you 3 days off of work, or they tell you you're fine, go back to work, or drink more water. But and then that's what I was expecting. I was expecting, like, oh, sweet, maybe I'll get 3 days off of the flight line for this. But they told me they were going to give me that referral, and they actually, I was coughing and stuff like that. Like I said, I thought it was a flu. They actually prescribed me codeine, which is terrible for a failing heart. I mean, they couldn't tell that the heart was failing at that point, but they prescribed me codeine. Luckily, I didn't take any of it, because I was going to go back to my room and swallow down some cough syrup and feel all high around the dorms, you know. I was already feeling shitty enough. I didn't want to drink the cough syrup, you know. But then I think that was February. That was in February, so it was either end of January or first week in February, because the Super Bowl was going on too. I forget. I think it was might have been Carolina that was playing. It was a few years ago,
right?
But that's when I went to watch the game with the guys, because we stayed on base for the game. So I went to watch the game with the guys, and that's when I noticed, like, something was really wrong with me, because we were during the Super Bowl on base. I don't know if you guys did the same thing, but it was a fucking keg party, basically, you know.
Pretty much.
It was awesome. You go outside, you're playing football, you play tackle football out in the yard, and I was actually out there, and I like started to play, and then I didn't want to play anymore. And I was a competitive young kid in the Air Force, right? So I wanted to play, you know, I wanted to play tackle football with the guys, but I was feeling shitty. I was out of breath. I was like, I don't want to play. And then I went, and I didn't want to even drink a beer. And I was like, all right, something's really messed up with me. I don't want to drink a beer. But yeah, so probably a few days after that, they didn't get the referral for me. Then I was on the flight line. We just finished. Again, I was on 4 to midnight shift, so it was probably about 9 p.m. We had just finished an inspection on an aircraft, combo inspection, and we were standing in front of the aircraft waiting for the bread truck to come around and pick us up. And I was talking to, it was either Sergeant Castro or Staff Sergeant Wilson. I was talking to them, and I turned around. I said, hold on a second. And I threw up all over the flight line. And they were like, you've been feeling off the past few days. Like, how about you just leave work tonight, go to the ER and get checked out? So I had to leave work that night at 9 p.m. and figure out what closest ER is open, because I never had a reason to go to the ER off base, you know. So I figured if I'm on base, anything happens to me, they'll bring me somewhere. But they told me to leave, go to the ER. So I had to figure out where that is, and then actually at the time I had my truck was broken down. Because I blew the engine in the truck at the off-road park in Arkansas. But yeah. But so I didn't have a vehicle, so I actually had to hit up my buddy, this kid Lamb. He's from Jersey, one of my really good friends. And I woke him up actually because he was on day shift. I called him. I said, "Hey, can you take me to the ER?" And he's like, "Yeah, no problem." So he drives me to the ER. We're sitting in the waiting room, and then they do an EKG. They find the irregular heartbeat, and then they do blood tests, and then blood pressure check, all the basics, and then they said, all right, we're gonna admit you into the ER. So they bring me back there, and then they started doing blood cultures, I think it's called. They started a ton more blood checks, and then they said, all right, you're staying overnight with us. And I was like, all right. My buddy came in, Lamb came in. I told him, like, yeah, I'm staying. Like, leave. You got to go to work in the morning. And they kept me overnight that night, and then it admitted me into the ICU there, saying something's up with your heart. And then that's when they did. They took me. They did more EKG stuff. I think echo. They did that stuff there, and then they brought me in for a right heart cath where they put an IV in your neck.
Oh, that must have been fun.
Yeah. Now they're second nature to me. So the right heart cath, they put the IV in your neck. It goes down into your heart, and they can test the pressures in your heart and the ejection fraction of the heart. So the pressures were shit, I guess. I don't know the numbers, but they were shit. And the EF, the ejection fraction, a normal heart, I'm pretty sure it was about 60 to 70. And mine was at 7%, meaning the blood that's coming into the heart, how much of that blood is getting pumped out to your vital organs. So my heart was only working at 7%, and that's why my other organs were failing as well.
Just weren't getting enough blood.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So
what's going through your mind as all this stuff is starting to go down now, and you're starting to understand that there's something really wrong with you?
Yeah, I mean, I was still, at this point, it was still all kind of like, all right, cool, like, where's the medicine, basically, you know? Because I don't come from a medical background. I don't know anybody that's in a medical background except for my brother's fiance now. She's a nurse, but back then I didn't know anything. So I was like, all right, you're telling me there's something wrong with my heart. I didn't know at the time that an ejection fraction of 7% is completely awful, and that the paperwork had me, and I think it was class 4 or stage 4, however they class it, class 4 or stage 4 kidney failure too. But all the organs were failing, and then they I didn't know any of that, so really through my head I was like, all right, what kind of IV do you need to put me on so I can go back to work, basically. I was just trying to get back to work so I get back to feeling good, so then I can get back out there on the flight line and learn more, because at that point I was kicking ass. I was learning a lot. I was really starting to actually like the 4 to midnight grind of working on the airplanes, getting dirty, busting your knuckles, but yeah, I mean, at that point, I was, all right, how are we going to fix this, basically? I didn't care. I mean, I didn't know the magnitude of how big the situation was,
So all this happens, and then they tell you need a new heart, and then what are you thinking?
Yeah, so actually I was in Baptist Health in Little Rock, and they said I had 2 doctors. One of them had just recently graduated from UConn, and then another one was an old guy. So I was a young Air Force guy. This old guy comes in, and he's typical, like, slow talking doctor. I'm like, well, fuck this guy. He doesn't know his shit. And then the UConn guy would come in and said, oh, we're gonna get you back to work in 3-4 days. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be back at jiu-jitsu and in the gym. You're gonna feel awesome. I'm like, all right, cool. I like that guy. I like the UConn guy. And then it was kind of good cop, bad cop type thing with the doctors, because I'd have the young guy saying that, and then I'd have the old guy. He came in the next day like, yeah, you might need a heart transplant. And at that point, my mother or father had already flew down there. My wife now, she flew down there, and they were in the room with me, and it was all like a kind of collective, like, what the fuck did he just say? And it was like, but the other guy yesterday just said that I was going to be at work in 2 days. I'm gonna be back on the mats at jiu-jitsu in 3-4 days. I'm going to be good. Like, you just have to do this IV milrinone drip, or I forget the different ones they had, but you just got to do the IV drip, and then I'm going to be good. Because that's how I was my whole life, I would get sick. I don't know. I probably had the flu a couple times when I was a kid, but never got checked out, and then I was good. So that's what I thought was going to happen with this. But then you had the old doctor coming in saying, yeah, you might need a heart transplant. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then it ends up, eventually he was correct. But at the time I was like, no, I'm not listening to that. But yeah, I was in the ICU there, and they were giving me, they had their hospital food. They were giving me like Gatorade that was loaded with sodium. It was terrible for the heart. They were giving me tea and coffee on the trays, which is terrible for the heart. There were all sorts of shit that they shouldn't have been doing. My family, my wife, and my actually, I think my brother came down there too. Because I never asked my family, because that's kind of their thing. I never asked my family when the Air Force called them and said, like, your son is sick. I don't know how much the Air Force told them. I didn't know if they told them, like, your kid's in the hospital dying, or if I don't know the magnitude of which they told them, because I mean, it was my mother, my father, my brother, his girlfriend at the time, and then my wife came down. So I didn't know if I don't know how much they told them, basically. But they kind of have they were, because I was just in the room in the ICU trying to get better, basically. And then I guess there was other parts of the hospital that were subpar to hospitals around here where my family didn't approve. And the Air Force Wounded Warrior was actually there every day. They're the guys that when the people get out that lose limbs or wounded or whatnot, they Air Force Wounded Warrior, they have a ton of events. They still email me every week. They have all these events that you can attend to, and they're fully paid for wounded airmen and stuff like that. And they take care of families, basically. So that's why they were there for me. But they put together the team for, like, the Invictus games and stuff like that. They were there trying to figure out what my family needed or whatever, trying to explain what the Air Force can do for them, because I wasn't just a kid down there in the hospital and the family's got to get there. You know, I couldn't imagine my family having to go through that if I wasn't in the Air Force. Luckily, I had the insurance was paid for. That I had people watching my family's back during it, being Air Force Wounded Warrior. So I'm glad that they helped out my family. But with the help of them and then my family, and then the wing commander had something to do with it too. They ended up getting me a Learjet air ambulance all the way back to Boston, because my family couldn't really stay down there for an extended period of time, you know.
Right.
I mean, I technically was dying in the hospital, but it doesn't mean that my wife, my brother, his girlfriend, and my parents can just put their life on hold and stop paying bills, you know what I mean? Although the Air Force Wounded Warrior would have stepped in and helped with that. They offered everything. And then another guy there, Staff Sergeant Wesley Castro, he's my supervisor. And First Sergeant basically told him, like, go to the hospital and be with him and his family. And he was there nonstop every minute of the day. He would they would leave there. He'd ask my parents if they needed a ride anywhere. He asked my parents and wife and all of them if they wanted to come over for dinner. He's the absolute I don't know how he is now. He could be a shitbag now. I don't know. But at the time, he was absolute perfect
guy, support system.
perfect support system, perfect model of what a supervisor, of what a staff sergeant should be doing.
Yeah.
There was other guys I know that they probably, I wouldn't say wouldn't do the same, but he was so on point of asking my family if they wanted to come over for dinner, all sorts of. I mean, he was a hell of a guy to do that. So, but they got me a Learjet back here to Boston, and they called. I don't know what the conversation was. I didn't care at the time, but somebody called up here and got a connect at Brigham and Women's Hospital downtown, and they were able to get hold of a Dr. Michael Giverts that said, like, yes, we'll take your son in or whatever. Because I mean, those hospitals down there are packed, so it's not like you can't just walk in there and say, hey, I'm sick, I got to go to like the 6th floor and get taken care of by this amazing doctor that everybody comes to from out of country to learn from. But he said, yeah, we're busy here, but we'll take in your son. So I flew there. My mom actually came on the plane with me, which is hilarious because she is deathly afraid of airplanes. So, but
that's her baby.
Yeah. But it was a Learjet, and it was we flew low and fast, and the pilots were actually amazing. They everything about the flight was completely smooth because I was in a stretcher, so they brought me in an ambulance from the hospital to the Little Rock airport, and I got then they brought the stretcher over the aircraft. I stood up and I walked into the plane, which is funny because they're telling me my heart's failing and all this shit, but I was able to stand up with the IV pole, walk over to the plane, walk up the stairs, lay down. And then I was laid down for the whole flight. I had the IVs in, and they had an on-flight nurse basically that was watching my numbers the whole flight. There wasn't one point that he took his eyes off those numbers. And then the other one, I think there was 2 nurses, and then the other one kept asking my mom if she was all right. And but it was, I mean, everything about this flight was perfectly smooth. I don't know if that's normal operations for air ambulance, but it was perfect. And so I showed up at Logan. They brought an air ambulance, not an air. They brought a regular ambulance out onto the tarmac, put me from the plane into that ambulance, and then they drove me from there to Brigham and Women's, and then rolled up into Brigham and Women's. They put me on the bed and took me on the elevator up to the floor, and then started doing tests on me basically at that minute, and then into the next morning they were doing blood tests and all that stuff, and they actually did the same right heart cath they did in Arkansas. They did it again in Brigham and Women's, and basically to solidify okay, your heart's fucked up, and then they were just doing more tests. It was a couple weeks, and then they had mentioned yeah, you are going to need a transplant. So that was kind of it was the old guy that I didn't like down in Little Rock was correct, but it was different hearing it from another doctor. You know what I mean? It was like, all right, okay, I guess I do. I guess this is something. This is a reality that's occurring right now. It wasn't just IV medicines for a few days and then I'll get back to the flight line. I'll be good. I'll be back at jiu-jitsu. It wasn't that anymore. It was, okay, I actually am really sick. Now I got to figure out what the fuck we do from here, So they told me I needed the transplant, and they said they introduced me to this idea of the LVAD, the left ventricular assist device. And I think two of my friends were actually there. And they came in and brought this little metal pump. It looks like a little metal turbo, basically. And then these wires coming from it, and then they had batteries, and then a controller. And they said, yeah, this is what we're gonna have to put in your body. And my friends are sitting there, and I'm looking at them, and I was weak and sick, but I sat there and listened. They gave me a 45-minute demo of what this fucking little turbo thing is. And I said, oh, okay, that's cool, whatever. Still kind of thinking, they told me that I probably need a transplant, but still kind of thinking that, when the doctors would leave the room, it was I'd kind of turn to my friends and my parents or whatever, and we'd be like, oh, yeah, but this is last resort. That's not what we need to do yet. The medicine's going to work, right? The medicine, the IVs will work. They're working on that. They're upping your dose. They lowered your dose. That's a good sign. That means you're doing better. Your numbers did better. And then a couple of days later, they brought the LVAD in again and gave me another demo on the little fucking turbo thing. And then it was like, all right, they're showing this to me twice. What is that? Why are they showing it to me twice? Does this mean I need that or something? And turns out I did. It was basically the LVAD. If your heart's failing like that, at 7% ejection fraction, if your heart's failing at that rate, you can get on the transplant list, and there's certain statuses on the transplant list. There's levels to it. So if you're on the high level, basically, if you're in the hospital with a swan in your neck and all these IVs in you, if you're living in the hospital, then that would be considered the top level. So I was able to get that for a couple weeks, and it was like, okay, hopefully I get a transplant in the next week or two or whatever. And then they realized that wasn't going to happen because the transplant's based off blood type and body size, so it has to be a perfect match.
No kidding.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people, they get in the hospital and they wait 14 days, and then all of a sudden a heart pops up because they got good blood type, they got good size, and then they're in the hospital, so it happens quickly. But for me, they said like you're going to need this LVAD as a bridge to transplant, meaning you're going to have this LVAD in your body, and then have the batteries, the controller, all that. You're going to need that until you can get a transplant, basically. So we'll give you the LVAD, and then we'll put you on the list, and then when you get the call, we'll take the LVAD out, we'll put the new heart in, and then you're good to go. So they it was, I think, March 26th, they implanted the LVAD into me. And then I was at the hospital for about two and a half weeks after that, learning how to use the thing, because it's, the controller is about as big as my phone here, and then there's a bunch of buttons on it and numbers and shit. And then there's 3 wires coming out of it. One of them is the drive line, which goes into your abdomen. There's they pierce your abdomen, and the drive line goes through there, and it's about 8-gauge wire, like 8-gauge electrical wire.
Nice.
Yeah, probably like this cord here, and that goes through your abdomen, and then the rest of that wire, it gets skinnier when it gets in your body, but the rest of that wire goes up to the little turbo that's hooked up to your heart, and it's hooked up to one of the valves or whatever, and it basically spools up the blood and it helps the heart pump it out. So that ejection fraction is 7%, where the blood is coming into the heart and not getting pumped out. That blood will come into the heart with the turbo, and then the turbo will help pump it out faster. So then the vital organs that were failing, they'll start getting that blood. That way you can live outside of the hospital, not on IVs, with the failing heart, but the LVAD is basically keeping you alive. So
until they find a new heart.
Yeah, exactly. So then then there's 2 other wires that come off the controller that go to batteries, and the batteries were about an AR-15 mag size.
Okay.
And then you put them into the battery connectors. Basically, the wires go to the little holsters, and the batteries go in. And you leave the hospital with like, I think, 4 pairs of batteries, so you keep a spare one. You have 1 in there, and you have 2 charging all the time. That way you can constantly swap them out. Luckily, I did it for the certain LVAD I got, because it's about 3 different ones. For the LVAD that I did, it was a trial. Basically, it wasn't approved yet in the United States. It was still technically a study. Even though it was approved in European countries like Germany. So I agreed to take this new heart pump. There was the brand that I took, there was 2 different ones. There was a HeartMate 2 and the HeartMate 3. The HeartMate 2 was the common one that people were getting, and then the HeartMate 3 came out, and they said there was less chance of it clotting than the HeartMate 2, because with that little turbo, the thick blood goes in there, and then it can clot the pump, and then the pump's not working anymore, and then they have to open you up. And
that must...
Yeah, exactly. It happens more often than you think, too. But that way you're on blood thinners, so it thins the blood, so it goes through there faster. But that was a trial for that heart pump, so luckily that one, it supposedly clots less than the HeartMate 2. So I had that pump. So it was about 2 weeks of learning how to use it, learning emergency procedures on it, basically. My family had to learn how to. They had to get trained how to use it. What happens if an emergency happens? I had to wear a medical dressing over the driveline site, where that driveline goes into your abdomen. I had my family had to learn how to change the bandage. That way, the driveline site doesn't get infected, which happens a lot with people, so they don't keep it clean or certain things. But so I had that heart pump, and when you get it, they give you basically it's like a coupon. They give you like a 30-day coupon that you can. It's not an actual physical coupon, but it's that's the idea of it. It's a 30-day coupon where you can use 30 days to be at the top of the list. So at that, I think they changed it now, the transplant categories, but then it was a status like A, B, and then like a status 7. So status A means you're going to get the call first, and then status B means like you're the second tier of people that need the transplants, but you have something like the LVAD, which is keeping you alive, or your failure isn't that bad. You still need a transplant, but you're still living right now. Or you have at-home IVs. Some people have IVs hooked up to them constantly with backpacks and stuff. But it was a 30-day coupon to be on the A list. So they were asking me when I wanted to use that when I got out, and I had just gone through the LVAD surgery, and before going into the hospital, I was scared of needles. I was scared of like everybody poking and prodding me and shit. Right. So then I did this LVAD surgery, and then they're like, when do you want to use your 30-day status A coupon? And it was like, I don't want to. I'm not ready for the next surgery. And then they kept pushing me to use it, but I was after the LVAD, even though the LVAD sucks because there's a metal pump inside of you. You got all these batteries. To sleep at night, I had to plug the controller into a wall plug that's plugged into the wall. So I needed to my heart was connected to batteries or the fucking wall in my bedroom all the time. So it was kind of, I get out of the hospital, I have that thing, and then it's like, all right, you want to do it again? Let's open up your chest again for the transplant. It was like, I understand I need the transplant, but I wasn't ready. So I was on that status B for a few months, and then like July 4th time, that's when they told me to use the coupon. So I used that, and ended up. So they tell you to use it around July 4th because all the drunk drivers. So a lot of because obviously like for
drinking and driving.
Yeah, exactly. For organ donors, a lot of the deaths that lead to organ donation for hearts at least, or drunk driving incidents, because especially when I was young and they were looking for a young healthy heart, it was drunk driving incidents. If you accept the risk of taking a high risk donor, it can be opioid like IV drug use, because when that happens they go brain dead but their other organs are fine, or they say like gunshot wounds to the head and stuff like that, because the I guess the other organs still are still working. So they told me to use it around July 4th time, because that's when it's summertime, July 4th, all the holidays, people are out there drunk driving. So I used that 30 days and ended up it didn't work for me. So I dropped back to a status B, and then that was kind of again, I wasn't really ready for the surgery, but it was kind of like I told him I wanted to use that coupon. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get it in the next 30 days. So I was trying to, amp myself up for it, because it's a scary thing going in for another open heart surgery when you just got out of one, and it was kind of a blow, because it was after the 30 days like ended, and I was like, it didn't work. So now I have to go back on the status B, and if it didn't work, if I waited on status A for 30 days, I didn't get anything, how long am I going to have to wait on the status B list in order to get this heart? But when I had the LVAD, that's when I bought my motorcycle. Actually, prior to that July, I bought the motorcycle. That was
it's a beautiful bike too.
Yeah. Well, I had a different one before this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a little Sportster, flat black Sportster. It was a nice bike too, but it was in June, so I got it 3 months after the surgery, and I got Now
your mom must have been all over the place with this.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah. I actually, I haven't. Bits and pieces here and there from my family and from my wife and my brother. They come up where they say like, different, things they were feeling while they're in the hospital or whatever. But I never really asked them, tell me what you were going through, basically. What were you thinking about? Because I don't know how emotional it was for them, But I ended up getting that motorcycle in June. I figured it was 3 months after the surgery, and I figured if I might as well. I just went through this surgery. I have these battery packs. I'm gonna get a transplant. It was kind of a hoorah to myself. I was like, I'm buying a fucking motorcycle. I'm gonna start riding this motorcycle. So I did that. I got the motorcycle. I started going I found on Facebook. One of my buddies I know from back in the day, Josh, we worked at Blue Hills together, and he was posting on Facebook. He was going to these motorcycle runs and stuff. So I was like, oh, cool, I'll check one of those out. I think maybe the first one I went to was actually right over here at the athletic club right there, the 22 kill ride.
Right.
I think that might have been one of the first ones I went to, and then I went to the Danny V ride and all those different rides, and I was like, wow, these are more like my people, you know what I mean? Because I went from, working, partying, drinking, hanging out with my brothers every single day, and then all of a sudden I was in the hospital and I was fucking back to Boston with my family, and then I was like, now I have no fucking friends, because it was like, I had the kids I hung out in high school with, I met up with them a few times after, and I hung out with them, but it was kind of like, yeah, I have these battery packs and shit. I'm still active duty in the Air Force, because the Air Force let me stay active duty while I had the LVAD. So they transferred me to Hanscom up here, but I was like, I have these battery packs, this heart pump. I have I'm active duty Air Force. I can't do the skateboard and the smoking weed, all this stuff that we used to do. No matter how much I wish I still could, because that was wicked fun. But I came up here, and then all of a sudden I didn't have any friends. So going to the motorcycle events, and I see people that were like me, that were joking and swearing up a storm like myself, like military guys. It was like, all right, wow, this is. And at first I wasn't even really talking to any of them. I was just there. I was just being there. And it was I ended up going to a few of those events that first summer. I went to probably 5, 6, 7 motorcycle rides just to be around more people of the same, more people that were like me. Instead of, because if I didn't do that, I would have just stayed home and been on the couch with this heart pump, with the woe is me attitude, fuck my life, I got this heart pump. But I was like, no, I might as well hop on the motorcycle, go out there and go to these motorcycle runs and see people like myself and maybe meet a few of them. So
you're waiting for a heart, you're on a motorcycle, I ride, so I definitely get what you're talking about. I think probably that's what it sounds like got you through some of this time, because you are alone.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's support groups on. I found a few support groups on Facebook, but there was no other people my age that had this going on. You know what I mean? And especially no other people my age that were in the military having this go on. So it was like I had no one really to talk to that would understand, like basically what I was going through, or not even that, because I'm not really the type of guy that would actually want to talk to them, but there was no really people around me that I was basically alone, in the sense that I still to this day I haven't seen anybody else that was in the military and had to get an LVAD and a heart transplant. I did hear stories of other people in the military that got out and needed heart transplants, but I didn't hear any of people that had the LVAD and then had to get a heart transplant. The
call had to come one day that, hey, we have a heart for you, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like? Was it just let's spool up and get this done?
Yeah. So we actually did a dry run, about 7 months before it ended up happening. We did a dry run because there was a guy in front of me on the list. I was number 2 on the list, on the B list. So the guy in front of me, he got his call, and they said, they called me and they said, "Okay, Conor, we want you here basically as a backup. We want you here as a backup because with the heart transplant, they could call it off at any moment. They could bring it up to the point where they open up your chest, and then they could call off the surgery for whatever reason. So they wanted me there as a backup just in case it didn't work out for the other guy. So I went there. I did the same routine as you did during the transplant. So I went to the ER, did the blood work. They brought me up to the ICU, and then I was there for like 10 hours. And they said, "All right, today's not your day. You're just a bridesmaid today. Next time you'll be the one that will have it." So, which was, I mean, that was a good feeling because I got it. I mean, it sucked because I didn't get a heart, but it was a good dry run. So I knew the moment. Basically what to do, where to go, the motions to go through, and then I knew I was next, basically. So that was a good thing. I knew that my time's next, but it actually ended up happening for about 7 months after that. So it was a year. It was 18 months, so a year and a half to the day after I got the LVAD implanted that I got the call for the heart transplant, which was a hell of a long time to wait, and I would never want to do it again, and I don't wish it upon my worst enemy to have to live by plugging yourself into a wall for a year and a half.
Oh.
But, yeah, I mean, I was at the time I got I started hitting the gym again when I had the LVAD, which was good. I didn't do too much running, but I hit the weights and stuff like that. I could stay strong. And then on 9/11, just before, so it was about 15 days prior to my transplant, on 9/11 I hopped on the stair climber. I did 110 floors. It's a popular thing people do on 9/11. They go hit the stair climber. Each twin tower had 110 floors in it, so you do 110 floors. If you're feeling gutsy enough, you do 220, which I'll probably do this year. But just to honor the firefighters that died in the towers. But I did that, and then so I was feeling good if I was able to do that. And then 15 days later, I got the call from the hospital. So basically, what happened was they called my wife. I'm pretty sure they called me. I didn't pick up, and then they called, I think, my wife. She was sleeping next to me because it was about 1 a.m. And she didn't pick up, and then they called my parents, I think, and then my parents called us and relayed the message to us. So I was the last one to wake up, basically, and I was the last one to know that, like, tonight's the night. My parents and my wife knew before me, which was hilarious. But, yeah, so they called me, said, "You got to get to the hospital." I think the doctor asked me, he said, what would you say if I told you, I have a heart for you? And I was like,
About time.
Yeah. I was like, what do you want me to say? Like, I was like, so I was like, that's awesome. So we drove to Brigham and Women's, did the same thing as we did during the dry run, went to the ER, did the blood test, and then I waited until probably, I think, must have been 2 a.m. when we got there. So it was, I don't know what time the surgery started. I know my family probably knows, but it was probably about 11 a.m., between 9 and 11 a.m. So until then, I was just sitting in a bed with my family around, thinking of the procedure to come, which is kind of nerve-wracking for me. I know my family, they're all excited because, it's going to finally be over. But for me, it was kind of laying there for 9 hours saying they're going to be taking my fucking heart out soon and putting a new one in, and like I'm supposed to just lay there and remain calm. Like it was
just another day in the office.
Yeah, exactly. So I was doing busy work. I was paying a couple bills on my phone, trying to like stay good. But so they rolled me in there, did the surgery, and Dr. Singh was the guy's name, the surgeon that did it. And then I don't remember waking up the next day or whenever I woke up, but I remember just a couple of days after that when I still had a ton of machines and lines in me and stuff. So I was in the hospital for 9 days after getting all the lines out of me, getting the heart rate of the new heart bumped back up. And, so 9 days after the transplant, I was able to walk out of the hospital.
That's amazing. So did life get, it's kind of like not the right way to say it, but did life get back to normal? Did you feel any different or like your old self, if you could even remember that far, when you got the heart?
Yeah. So, so basically, like when you get out of the hospital, a lot of people ask you, like, "Oh, like you're good now, right? You're back to normal." But it's like there's still a recovery period, and actually, my recovery period for the heart was worse than my recovery period for the LVAD, even though my heart was technically failing at that point, and now I have a new heart. The heart transplant recovery was a hell of a lot harder than the LVAD recovery. The only thing that was more difficult about the LVAD recovery is that I had to learn how to use all the equipment and shit. This new one, I didn't have to learn how to use a new heart. I basically just, I live. I had to learn how to sort my medications, but that was about it. But, so it was about 9 days after I got out, and after that it was, it was tough at first, but ended up, it took a few weeks to get back to normal,
You're out of the hospital, you're doing your thing, and a couple significant things in my mind happened after that. When I met you, you were fully enveloped in the Veterans Brotherhood Motorcycle Club.
Yep.
And there are a lot of motorcycle clubs out there. There are a lot in Massachusetts, but you gravitated toward that one, and it's very evident that that's a part of your life. Your family, of course, it's very evident to see that they're a major part of your life. But in that spirit of brotherhood and esprit de corps, how did you get into the Veterans Brotherhood?
Yeah, so I met this guy, Lance. He was the first one I met, and it was kind of a no-brainer. It was a no-shit type of thing, because like I told you, when I got out of the hospital the first time, and I bought the bike, it was because it was 3 months after the LVAD. I was technically, my heart was dying at that point, and I bought the motorcycle. I started riding the motorcycle, and then I told you the different events I went to. I started hanging around more of the guys that were like me. So then I found this club that it was, the guys were just like me, the military veterans. We can joke about the same stuff. We can swear up a storm and nobody fucking looks at us weird. And then riding the bike, I fell in love with riding the bike when I had the LVAD. So it was a no-brainer. And then the biggest part of it too was helping other veterans, because when I was in the hospital, like I told you in Little Rock, when I had the groups like Air Force Wounded Warrior helping me, I had that kid, Staff Sergeant Castro, I had him helping me in my family out there. My the wing commander, the base commander, they all came to the hospital. My squadron commander, who was actually a Marine vet before he joined the Air Force, I forget his name now, some Italian name, but he actually came to the hospital with the chief of our maintenance squadron, Chief Bubba Beeson. They came. They brought me fucking gun magazines and all that. But there was so many people that helped me out during, so many veterans and veteran organizations that helped me out during that process, that it was just a no-brainer to join a club that helps out veterans. So it's just repaying, because it's not the same people that help me out, but if there's a veteran in need that I can help out, I know what it feels like to be in that shitty situation in the hospital at 3 a.m, can't sleep by yourself because the medicine has you shaking, and I know what it feels like to be that low. So if there's other people out there that I can help, and then at the same time hang out with brothers and ride motorcycles, it was...
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I just wanted to be clear. A lot of people, civilian and military, still associate the word motorcycle club with negative, clubs. When I say negative clubs that do bad things.
Yeah.
But you guys are very upfront. That's not what you guys are all about. You're about giving back to veterans and being a positive influence in the community. Do I have that right?
Yeah, very right. I mean... That's exactly right. We're a veteran motorcycle club. We're a non-territorial veteran motorcycle club. So we're a 501c3 charitable organization. So we help out veterans. Basically, the negative connotation that comes about with motorcycle clubs is just because of TV and the History Channel Gangland, which I love watching myself. It's a fucking awesome show. But basically, that's when everybody sees a black vest, that's what they think of, because they see the goofy show on the Goofy show on TV with the fucking Blondie kid. They see that show and then they see Gangland. But there's thousands of motorcycle clubs out there that are doing awesome things. A ton of them charitable organizations. They're all doing good things.
And I know that you all are constantly looking for members to join and socialize and do good and ride together. Been very clear from day one. What's that like when a new guy comes in and he joins you?
Yeah. So it's kind of you're auditioning for us type of thing. I mean, we're not going out there saying, oh, this guy that just drove by in the Kia, like I'm gonna see if he wants to join a motorcycle club. It's kind of like if you approach us and then you're hot shit, you want to help out, you want to ride with us, and I mean it takes the right guy. You know what I mean? So.
Are you Harley Davidson only, or are you metric as well?
Personally, I would prefer if everyone had the Harleys, but technically, no.
Now, wait a minute. Now, hold on. Well, I ride a metric bike, and I have ridden with too many Harley guys who have various difficulties.
Yeah. Mechanic.
Just saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no. It's not Harley owned. I think we got some Jap bikes, but just no crotch rockets, basically.
I agree.
Yeah.
So you're doing this. You're married. You got some kids now, and then we're gonna the last part of this podcast just at a high level because I want you to come back on.
Yeah.
How did you get just at a high level running a marathon?
Yeah.
I mean, running is bad for you, right?
That's what some people say. Actually, after I ran the marathon, I saw an article just recently that said running marathons is bad for you and stupid. No shit, it's stupid, but...
Well, a couple of things. You ran the marathon, and you were talking about the Marine Corps marathon?
Yeah.
Just no pressure, but there is a bib that I could give you or get you in touch with for $500.
Yep.
So we'll take this offline, talk about it, but I can, it's only $500.
Yeah.
And I could help out getting you to that 500. But I'm sitting there because, folks, he has this on Facebook. He's on Mistress Carey, who's, been great with veterans. That you're going to run the marathon, man, with a new ticker.
Yeah.
I mean, was this hard to train for? Was there any kind of difficulty with that?
Yeah, I mean, I only had 5-6 weeks to train for it because my dad does jiu-jitsu with me too in Weymouth at Dedeco Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Great place to train, and when I got sick, I couldn't train jiu-jitsu anymore because I had the batteries and the Elva, the heart pump, all that shit. So I convinced my dad to start doing jiu-jitsu. So he started jiu-jitsu at I think 51 years old. Which is awesome, but
that's a badass.
Yeah, he fell in love with it, but we started going to this place in Weymouth. We met a Weymouth firefighter that trains there. He's one of those guys that doesn't like social media, so I won't say his name.
Sure,
but he's a Weymouth firefighter. He's a Marine Corps vet, Marine Corps recon vet. He used to have a bike too. He sold his bike because of babies, but. So he was training for the marathon. He was running for Mass Fallen Heroes, and he knows my dad from jiu-jitsu. My dad was he asked my dad, "Can you help me train? Because you run all these marathons and shit." So he was helping him train, and then this other guy came along, Jay Ferrara, who's a local Marine too. He's a Weymouth firefighter as well. He's a Gold Star brother as well.
Oh man,
he works with Mass Fallen Heroes, so he was training with this other guy and my dad at L Street Running Club every Sunday. I think they do runs, and then they were running 15 to 18 miles every Sunday, so that's a shit long time to be out there. So basically, they get to talking, and then my dad tells them about my story, and then. Told him that I was signed up for a half marathon in March. And he was like, oh, no shit. He signed up for a half marathon. And then I did, the previous year, I did Stairs for Our Troops at Gillette Stadium. I did 2 veteran 5Ks, the Marine Corps Honor Run 5K, and then I did a 10K, and then I signed up for this half marathon. So he's like, oh, he signed up for a half marathon. He's doing the running thing. And then he went back to Mass Fallen Heroes. He said, listen, I got this Air Force vet that had a heart transplant, and his dad's a runner too. I need 2 more bibs to give to these guys. So he got us the bibs actually, and I was able to run for Mass Fallen Heroes. The thing is, I only had about 5-6 weeks to train, and it was 6 weeks to train, and the marathon was 5 weeks after the half marathon. So I only had that much to train, but I was like, I got the bib. It was the week after my heart transplant, I told myself I'm going to run a marathon someday. I didn't know that it was going to be this close because I didn't know, the stars were going to align and some Marine was going to pop out of nowhere and give me a fucking bib. And I got very lucky. And then this is basically that was the end goal, was to run a marathon, which I say that now. It's funny because that was the end goal. And then, he said, I can give you a bib. So I was like, no shit, I'll do it.
Well, end goal. So one of the things I just want to touch on real quick before we close this down, because we could talk for hours just about motorcycles. I'm a Marine. I'm all about Marines doing cool stuff, military guys doing amazing stuff. And I got to say, Conor, it was very disappointing watching that Marine crawl over the finish line. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
And there's Conor. I mean, just stepping it out, just running. He's got his little, umbrella hat on because it was raining the day before, and he's just loving life.
Yeah.
And there's one of mine who's called a hero. I'm like, hero? We got the Air Force guy with the new ticker, 18 months later, crushing a marathon. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, the hero term is thrown out on these articles because of his military service, which I applaud his military service. But the actual feat of crawling across the finish line, I mean, hopefully it was just due to his shitty training plan, or if he had a shit day, because he still finished a hell of a lot faster than me. But hopefully that was just due to his just a bad day, basically, and just a shitty training plan. But like you said, you're a Marine, so from a Marine standpoint, you're saying, like, come on, it's 50 more feet, just fucking step it out, right?
Exactly.
But
walk across.
Yeah.
But
and then he was getting hands given to him, like, hey, grab my hand, I'll help you out. And then a soldier in Army uniform ran by him in uniform, finishing the marathon, and hey, take my fucking hand. And that was the point that I was like, all right, this is kind of a,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, come on. But you've done all this stuff, and it sounds like, with your family, with your wife, with your children, with the Veterans Brotherhood, and now these running activities, that this isn't just a goal.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a whole lifetime of things you can do and give back and give hope to other people. So it's just been, like, great. And I've seen you at the other events. We've talked before, and I'm just really honored and pleased that you came on for number 150 for me. It's kind of a dual accomplishment here, Conor, and I really want to thank you for your time. And hope to have you back on, because we haven't even touched jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
We haven't really touched motorcycles. And then I'm not a runner anymore. I do weightlifting, but it'd be nice to understand how more of that works for you and what you've been able to do. I just want to see you succeed in life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talked about how everything came to be, basically. But there's still a ton more things I'd like to talk about different events I've done, and then different events I'm gonna do the following year, or this year coming up, actually. So. Well,
next time, if you don't mind a Yamaha Stratoliner, we'll go riding sometime and maybe do the podcast off our bikes at a stop somewhere. But hey, folks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is number 150 for me. Really a good watermark for a podcaster. Really pleased to talk to an Air Force veteran. Don't get to talk to a lot of those guys. And what Conor has done in the service and outside has just been amazing. Conor, thanks again.
No problem. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Travis with Oscar Mike Radio. This is Conor, Air Force veteran, heart transplant, marathoner extraordinaire, motorcycle guy. We're on the move.